Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, the Canadian women's national team is eliminated by Germany in Paris 2024. We'll talk about what's next for CF Montreal in Leagues Cup as we will follow the game between Orlando and St. Louis. And finally, we'll give our takes for the near future for CF Montreal. That and a lot more on episode 189 of The Ball is Round. And I'm joined by my friends, Elias Jeers and Andy Coronado. Hey, guys, how are you today?
Doing good. I'm doing good.
Doesn't look like it.
I'm doing very good. I'm sorry. It's just a Sunday night, getting ready for the week. But no, I'm feeling excited for tonight. Hoping that everything goes our way.
Nice. That would be nice.
Recover from yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Elias, how are you feeling?
It's cautiously optimistic. I don't know. Based on what we saw from San Luis, I hope Orlando doesn't have too much of a difficulty and they can maybe give Montreal fans a little bit of peace before halftime. But no, at the end of the day, it's Leagues Cup and nonsense can happen. So we shall see what we shall see, right?
It's a CONCACAF competition, so anything can
exactly.
happen.
You never know.
Cup, whatever happens in CONCACAF is always pretty weird, right? So it's going to be fun. So for people that are listening and you're not really sure what we're talking about, of course, Leagues Cup. Tonight, there'll be the game between Orlando City and San Luis at 8 p.m. It's right now 7:38. So while we're streaming, of course, we'll talk about the game. We're not going to watch the game, but at least we'll watch, in case there's something. I think, Elias, you're going to be our eyes on the game during.
So if you inexplicably see me with my head in my hands, you'll know why.
So that's going to be fine. But of course, we need to talk first about the Canadian women's national team. Of course. We're going to talk about the performance. Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
They got the boot.
They got the boot.
From the competition.
Exactly.
Right, sorry, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They're just having some
too
fun.
Soon.
Yeah.
It's okay. It is too soon. But you know what? It could have been a lot worse than what it is for the Canadian women's national team. So first of all, we'll talk about the game, yesterday games at first. We'll analyze the game, and right after we'll talk about the tournament all together. So let's really right now focus on yesterday's game, because I think that's what's really important right now, because the game was a tough one, right? Against Germany. Germany is a very strong team. We're not talking about a team that's just starting to make some noise. It's always been a very strong national team on the women's side. So of course it was a big challenge for the Canadian women's national team, just because, yes, they won 3 games, but unfortunately, because of whatever happened, they were only second, so they had to play a team that was much stronger than what it would have been in case they had all their points in the standings. So let's look at the lineup of Andy Stance. I was going to say Beth Priestman, but no, she's not here anymore. So we'll look at the lineup, and you guys will tell me what you guys thought. Was that something that was expected or not? So at first, I'll just show you. So at first we had Kaylin Sheridan as the number 1 in goal between the pikes. As the central defense, Jade Rose on the right, Vanessa Gilles in the middle, and Kadisha Buchanan on the left. As a right wing back, we had Ashley Lawrence, left wing back, Gabrielle Carl in the middle. And that was very interesting to see Quinn with Simia Wojo and Jessie Fleming. And up front, the tandem, Michelle Prince, Jordan Heidema. As subs, we had Janine Becky, Sabrina D'Angelo as a second goalkeeper, Julia Grosso, Chloe Lacasse, Adriana Leon, Evelyn Vian, and Shelina Zadorsky. Elias, when you saw that starting 11, what was your reaction?
Wasn't too surprised in formation. I mean, this is the same lineup Capicoli that they had against France. And so I wasn't too surprised. I was, however, a little bit disappointed because my biggest complaint about that formation and that particular starting 11 is when you play with a team that's primarily looking to hit back on the counter, like what you do when you have, these two strikers alone, is you need people that can create and finish their own chances themselves. Because again, if you're playing on the counter, you're not going to be having many opportunities to finish a developed play. And they struggled against France in the first half. They allowed a lot of pressure, and Prince and Hady were not the duo to kind of relieve that pressure and hurt France. It was the exact same. I mean, we'll talk about it, but it felt like the exact same against Germany. So I don't hate this tactic, and I don't hate this idea of how to play, but you have players that are far better suited to be in that attacking top two. So my biggest problem again was the fact that I understand you're the interim coach and you're in at a very weird time and you're in under a lot of pressure at the last minute, but you're still in a position where you have to learn from not just past games, but especially in one tournament, you have to draw conclusions from games and make adjustments. And it felt like they made no adjustments from that first half in France, where they effectively surrendered all the ball and was basically off a women of prayer. So that was a little bit disappointing to start, and the first half was really just emblematic of that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Andy, you looked at that starting 11. Was there something missing in your opinion?
I felt like I don't know if it will be necessarily missing, but I was a little bit surprised that the fact, similar to what Elias is saying, is that we had a Prince and Jordan in the starting two, because I don't think I've seen that work too well in the past games. So I was kind of surprised. Missing, I don't know. I was just I was surprised as to see, first of all, to see that Adriana Leon was benched. I don't understand that, because I like the way she plays, but I think we'll look at that a little bit later, her performance, how that went. But and yeah, so that again, not missing, but I'm just not sure I understood what the coach was doing with the combinations and all that. If it was, did he see something maybe in practice or something that would work as opposed to what we saw in the games? Because it just didn't make much sense to me, the starting lineup from what we had seen in the past.
Yeah, and we're not, we talk a lot about Jordan Heidema, about Michelle Prince. I think we made it clear here on the bonus round that it's not the two players that we would put up top in the starting 11, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But it's nothing against them personally. It's because their performances with the women's national team are usually not really consistent, and we think that some players could benefit from second chances, or could gel better together than those two. What I was pretty surprised of. So first of all, I like the idea to have those three midfielders. I like that, because with that Friesman, we didn't have a three midfield, a three women midfield. We had two, and we were playing with mostly a 3-4-3 and not a 3-5-2. I like the fact that we're playing a 3-5-2. I think it suits a lot more our abilities and our national pool. I think it's better for the squad that we have, for the players that we have, to play that 3-5-2 than a 3-4-3. So that I was very, very, very happy about. Of course, the central defense, nothing to say. I was very happy to see Gabrielle Carl back in the starting 11, because I think that she's pretty good, and I think if she gets consistent minutes, she's gonna grow and she's gonna evolve a bit more. So I was happy, but again, I agree with you, Elias. I agree with you, Andy. The top two, I wasn't very, very, very happy with the decisions. And looking at the bench, there's so many players that could have helped a bit more in that starting 11, in my opinion. So let's talk about to talk about everything that we saw, all the players for individual performances, and of course we'll talk about the coach a bit later. Caitlin Sheridan, Andy, Caitlin Sheridan is a great goalkeeper, and we know that. We know that she's good, when she's on her line. But we always ask ourselves, is she good when she needs to control the area altogether? Did you think that was a bit of a weakness for her in that game, or did you like what you saw?
Honestly, I wouldn't say I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was a strength or weakness, because she had such good compliments with Buchanan and Gilles, that they seem to be pretty autonomous on their own page. So I think she had a great competition overall. She made some amazing blocks. As far as her commanding the line, I mean, at times it did seem like, especially because she would maybe need to help the younger one, which was Rose, that she's on the younger end, and she seemed to sometimes kind of, I guess, take that side for granted where Rose is, and she, she's young, she will make mistakes, she could lose her focus in certain plays that could be costly for the team, but yeah, overall I thought it like her weaknesses, if you want to put it that way, were made up with the leadership that we had in the defensive line. For the three of them, so yeah, I think they complemented each other really well. The defensive line with the goalie. I know we're not talking with defensive line, but I think they camouflaged her weakness through their leadership in the front three.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, of course, having a strong back three, and we'll talk about that a bit later, helps a lot. Elias, I think she was pretty good in that game, Caitlin Sheridan. I don't know if you have anything to add on her, but when she had to make a save, she did it. She made a very, very good save at one point. So you can count on a decisive goalkeeper with the Canadian women's national team. Yes, she's going to make a mistake here and there, but most of the time she's going to be a sure thing. She's going to be, a goalkeeper that you can count on in those moments where she needs to step up. She always does. And she did in that quarterfinal, no?
In regular play, yes, I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. I think, we always keep on talking about how good Steph Lebe is and how well she's playing and how all these things, and then you keep on asking why she doesn't get minutes, and it's because Shalina Zadorsky is hands down one of the best keepers in the world, right?
Shalina Zadorsky? You mean Caitlin Sheridan?
Caitlin Sheridan. I don't know why I keep on mixing mixing their names up. They're such different
What game
names.
are we talking about?
Caitlin Sheridan. I don't know why I said that, but
it's okay.
She is one of the best keepers in the world, and again, in open play, she proved it. My concern now is in penalties, and this has become a common thread, and even against the Americans, where they ended up not converting on 3 penalties in the She Believes Cup, it's because they missed. Right, Caitlin Sheridan, when it comes to stopping penalties, that is not her strong suit. And when you're in a team that, for whatever reason, cannot reliably convert penalties over the course of an entire shootout, you need to counteract that with a goalie that can bail you out. And Caitlin Sheridan hasn't done that yet.
In penalties.
In penalties. Let's be reasonable here, because in open play, again, she is phenomenal. But at no point has she stolen a shootout. At least in the they lost 3 of the last 4, and again they won 2 shootouts in the Olympics. So it's very clear that this team knows how to win pens. Yeah, but that was 4 years ago, right? That's a very different.
Yeah, Elias, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel that being good at penalties, it's either you have it or you don't.
Yes,
it's something that you can learn. It's flair. It's
you
really
can
flair.
Get better at it, maybe, but it's either something you have or you don't. It's this innate ability to be in a penalty taker's head. So from a fundamental standpoint, you can get better at reading tells. You can get better at getting across fast enough, because again, she did guess right in a couple of different scenarios, but she just it's this unquantifiable thing that goalies have. It's either they've got it or they don't. And you look across the team, and you look at the German keeper, you look at even the American keeper they went up against. They've got that indescribable thing that just says, I'm going to stop this penalty, and there's no way.
Okay, that's interesting.
It takes a special kind of personality as well for a goalie to be like, one-on-one with a player And I don't know if Sheridan does necessarily have that kind of personality, but I'm wondering because also it comes down to strategy by the coach and the goalkeeping coach, right? That says I know my goalie's strengths and I know my goalie's weaknesses, and towards I don't know, the 190 and the minute 119th, maybe we can think about subbing our goalie that is better at penalties, unless they don't have one that is any better than Sheridan
Sabrina
at penalties.
D'Angelo. I'm pretty sure Sabrina D'Angelo would have
So
been
why
a
aren't we
bit
doing
better.
a sub knowing that it's coming up? You know, like give that goalie 2 minutes to warm up with some shots,
Yeah.
and anyways, but that's part of the strategy of a game, right? You know what you're heading into. It's not a surprise. So
But can we say that she's not good at penalties yet? I don't think we can. I think she wasn't decisive in that game, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't know, Elias, you're the one that pointed this thing out. But can you say Kaylin Sheridan's not good at penalties? Can you be assertive when saying that, or right now she still hasn't proved anything, but you're still on the fence?
No, I'm not gonna say she's bad at penalties, but I'm saying when your forwards aren't getting it done, at
Yeah.
some point or another, you need to steal a shootout for your team.
I agree, but would
I
you
think
have
that's the biggest
done?
difference.
Would you have substituted Kaylin
No.
Sheridan before?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not there
at the end
yet
of-
where I
you
would
put your best
do
foot
that,
forward,
right?
right? Unless it's like a Holland in the Euro like a couple years ago, where you have a penalty specialist,
Yeah.
like Tim Krul, where this is their bread and butter, and even if they're not the best keeper on the team overall, this is what they're good at. But I don't think Canada has
okay,
anything like that, so I don't think that's even a consideration. In
nobody
pens,
that
you
would be
put your best
considered
foot
their
forward.
specialty to
No,
but
so I
okay.
think you put your best foot forward, and that is hands down killing
Yeah,
Sheridan.
roll the dice with the goalkeeping you
Exactly.
Yeah.
have.
Unless you realize that she's not good, and at that point, I think I would make a change for someone that's average or good, and that would be Sabrina D'Angelo, which is who is very good, by the way, playing with Arsenal right now as a second goalkeeper. And she played a couple of games where she was very interesting in the league in a women's Super League in England. So Kaylin Sheridan, I think, did what she had to do. By the way, if I look at statistics, just to let you know, Kaylin Sheridan had only one shot on target against her. One shot on target, and she made that save. And it was not a very easy save to do. So I think that's good.
Definitely she was definitely someone that shined in this competition a lot by her stops, by her clutch moments, by her leadership. It's tough to go down in penalties. I think that I'm going to talk about that later because I absolutely hate penalties in soccer. But yeah, it's unfortunate that it came down to that, because she did show a great competition. She showed really, really, especially everything going on with the team right now. It was just fantastic showing by Sheridan.
Yeah, she did well. She did well. And the other side, of course, we'll talk about Berger a bit later because she had a phenomenal game, 6 shots on target, great at penalties.
Game-winning save.
Game-winning save against Adriana Leon. We'll talk about that a bit later. Let's talk about that defense. Vanessa Gilles, Kadisha Buchanan, Jade Rose. Andy, you did talk a bit about Rose being a bit young, making mistakes. It's weird because we have seen Rose in the past few months, and she's always been stellar. I think that in that game, I agree with you that she was a bit shaky at times, but I think also that the German team was really prepared to really go at her as much as possible. Kadisha Buchanan, Vanessa Gilles. I really liked the defense, and it shows, like I said, in statistics. 1 shot on target, yes. 15 shots altogether, just only 1 on target. I think that they were in control. Yes, Germany played a very good first half. We didn't at all, but I didn't see any I didn't see any big chances except on that breakaway where that was the stop of Kaylin Sheridan. I don't know. I really love this back three. I think that's our best line right now in the Canadian women's national team. Elias, anything that you can say about those three?
It's And I tweeted this out earlier, but Khadijah Buchanan and Vanessa Gilles are rightfully seen as world-class center backs. Amazing.
Hmm?
They had a great tournament, but Jade Rose, especially her last 6 months, has been every single bit the defender that the other two are. She's a college student, and the fact that there isn't an an insane bidding war around from the top clubs that need a center back like that, a young center back that's been proven against not just in big tournaments, but against big players. I'm talking Trinity Rodman. I'm talking Kathy Diani. I'm talking Linda Caicedo. I'm talking the best left wingers in the world. And the fact that she's, if not completely marked them out of the game, rendered them significantly more ineffective than they usually are. And she does it essentially on an island a lot of the time because it lets Ashley Lawrence get forward. It lets Vanessa Gilles worry about the striker. And she does it one-on-one defending. Now, her positional play can use some work, like the goal that France scored. She did get caught out of position. But when it comes to one-on-one defending against these players, and she locks them all down, the fact that this isn't the hottest property in women's football right now makes absolutely no sense to me. And I know that, especially if, given that, she plays in the States, NWSL clubs probably have a better look at her. If they're not lining up to sign her the second she decides to go pro, then
it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
No
She's
sense.
an NCAA player,
especially the last 6
That's
months.
crazy.
Like from the She Believes Cup or even the Gold Cup onwards, she's made that position entirely her own. There was some debate after the World Cup on who would be that third center back, and she silenced everything because she has been incredible with the ball. She's getting better. I don't think she's at that level yet in possession. I think having Ashley Lawrence on your side helps a lot because she can kind of make up for that. But defensively, she's phenomenal. And this tournament, again, every single time, it felt like every single time she was just there and she was just perfectly timed tackles. And I can spend the entire podcast talking about Jade Rose and how good she is. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think Vanessa Gilles, we talked about Vanessa Gilles last episode, how much she's become grown into the leader of this back line. And Khadijah Buchanan is almost starting to become underrated with how much Vanessa Gilles has been standing out and how Jade Rose has kind of ascended. Khadijah Buchanan is still,
she's still tough.
That proper fundamental, always in the right spot leader who is just deceptively. She's always there, and again, you also need a bruiser sometimes, and that's Khadijah Buchanan.
She reminds me. I don't know if you guys remember the Arsenal team that went undefeated for a whole year. And there was two center backs, and it was Martin Keown and Saul Campbell. And for me, Khadijah Buchanan is Saul Campbell. It's as simple as that. She's like, wow, really amazing center back. Andy, Vanessa Gilles. Okay, let's talk a bit about her, and of course you can bounce back on everything that Elias said for sure. Yeah. But first of all, I'm going to ask you a question about Vanessa Gilles. This woman started playing soccer at 16.
That's crazy.
16. She didn't know anything about soccer before. Yeah. And now we can hands down say she's one of the best defenders in the world. I'm not saying maybe number one, I'm saying in the top 10 or 15. Still, she started soccer at 16.
That's crazy.
How important it is to not give up on late bloomers?
It's very important, especially in the position of defenders, because defenders do take a little bit of time. Speaking of, Rose was so good at such a young age, which is very rare to find. Usually, the defenders do take a little bit. But Vanessa Gilles has shown a different level of maturity throughout the tournament. And I think one of the things that, and going back to what Elias was saying, is many of the opponents could have seen maybe Rose as a weak link because she's so young, she doesn't play in European Championship. But the trust that Buchanan and Gilles gave to her is a big thing. You could tell that they trusted her and that they trusted her side and that they didn't try to do too much, because that's big for a player. And those of us that have played sports in the past will know that when somebody trusts you to do your role and it does a lot for you. It gives you that confidence, and that's something that you saw with her. Yes, like I said, in this particular game with Germany, she did have a few mistakes here and there, but that can happen to any player at any age. We can have off games, we have distractions, but Vanessa Jill was incredible, and to answer your question, Hady, as far as how important it is not to give up on late bloomers, it's very important for club and for nation, because if you give up on a too soon on a player that has the potential of growth, then you are not only potentially ruining that player's career and confidence, you are also not giving your team the best possibility to win any championships, because someone like Vanessa Gil can be the kind of player that can win you championships. That's the truth, because of her leadership skills, and the fact that the moment you need her, be it on defense or on offense, she is there, no questions asked. So that's what you need in a team. It can take sometimes some people can find that at 30 years old. Sometimes people find it at 20 if you're lucky, but it's important. It's important to give second chances, third chances, and just believe that some games, some runs are just bad runs. Some games are just bad games. It does not define the player. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I like the back three. I think that they're the reason why we were able to keep a clean sheet during that game. Let's talk about the wing backs: Gabrielle Carl, Ashley Lawrence, Andy. We saw those two really play different roles during the game. We saw Ashley Lawrence play in the midfield, switch from right to left. We saw Gabrielle Carl trying her best, on the left before being substituted. Those two, I think, like, you can't blame them on anything. Is there something bad that you've seen from them? Do you think they could have done a bit more?
I think that they both did well. The only one that just really stood out to me that was having a poor game until the extra time, the second half of the extra time, was Ashley Lawrence, where I saw a lot of instances where she was just running. I saw it in the Colombia game thing, I think too, where she would just run down the field by herself with the ball and would just hold on to the ball too long. Not necessarily always her fault, because that means that maybe she's not seeing the attackers, or the attackers are not running at her pace. But there were a lot of times where she kind of lost herself, and she would pass it to the wrong, or the opponent, like three of the other opponents would gang up on her, and she'd lose the ball. I didn't like her performance during the 90 minutes, but like I said, at the starting from the second half, an extra time, I thought she was stellar. She was making moves, like taking on 2-3 players and then taking her shot. And I thought that was, where has she been the full 90 minutes when you need that? Because their role as wingbacks, left or right, wherever they are, is to facilitate the offense. So that's was my impression. As for Carl, didn't see anything that I would say remarkably say that it was a bad performance or a stellar performance either. She did her job. She did what she could during the time that she was there.
Elias, do you agree on Andy's takes on those two players?
Yeah, I think Ashley Lawrence didn't have her best game. I do think that there were some moments where, especially in the first half, where I feel like she could have maybe grabbed control of that right flank a little bit more dominant. But at the same time, I feel like the one thing I'd love to see her work on a bit more consistently is her delivery, because throughout this tournament, she's had good moments where, she can play a really good ball in, a really dangerous ball in, but it has to be done more consistently, especially for a player at her level who, is again, is a top player playing for a top club. It has to be done more consistently and has to be done with more danger, because besides that, honestly, I don't see what else she needs to add to her arsenal. But yeah, I agree with Andy. I think that, probably not her best game. Still definitely good enough to get the job done. But yeah, I think we gone to the point now where we can expect more from the key players. And Gabrielle Carl, I think I do like what she brings in terms of just bringing some balance to that back line, especially with how much Ashley Lawrence likes to get forward. I do like that she is a little bit more cautious, a little bit more of a traditional left back. But at the same time, you need more from her, especially if you're playing in a game with two forwards. You have that reassurance in the midfield now. You have 3 midfielders. Get forward, right? Help with the counterattack. help with maybe giving some the forwards a bit more support, because yeah, they locked that side of the defense down and it wasn't too dangerous or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you have 3 center midfielders and 3 center backs behind you. Enjoy a bit of the freedom. So I think that having her against a team that you are fully expecting to, if you're playing Spain, for example, and you know you're going to concede 60-70% possession, I understand why you're a bit more reserved. But against Germany, this is a straight fight. You shouldn't be conceding any ground against Germany. So I want to see her be more aggressive in situations like that.
Interesting. I didn't feel the same way as you guys, because I thought that in the first half, tactically, the team Germany was better than us, and we'll talk about Andy Stans a bit later. So I think that the two wing backs couldn't really express themselves very much. And I think in the second half, and we'll talk about that a bit later too, the forwards, or at the beginning of the first half, of the second half, the forwards didn't really help those two to really cross early, or really give a lot of early balls or whatever, because of the calls from the two forwards. So I don't know. I think that defensively they were both very, very good. Yes, offensively they didn't produce much, but I don't think it's because of them. I think it's because of the movement and the tactics that we've seen
factors,
in the game. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll talk about that when we talk about Andy Stans and the strikers. But I see your point. I completely see your point. Now, midfielders. Those 3 midfielders, Simi Awujo, Quinn, and Jesse Fleming. That's who started the game. Elias, they were a bit, I'm not going to say bad, but they weren't really good in the first half.
It seemed a bit disjointed at the beginning. It seemed a little bit like they were trying too hard to replicate what they did against France and didn't realize that they had a lot more time on the ball and they had a lot more space to play with than they did against France. And I think that kind of, I don't know if it caught them off guard. I don't know if they were just maybe focusing too much on their instructions and not really reading the game. But yeah, I do definitely think that they should have been a lot more dominant. And we saw in the second half when Canada really started to take over the game, it was through the middle of the park that a lot of the freedom was being created. And yeah, it's very clear that Jessie Fleming isn't 100% fit. She was a little bit banged up against Colombia. She came off at halftime, right? So it's clear that, not having 100% fit Jessie Fleming drastically decreases how effective this midfield is. I still really like Simi Awujo's game. I still think that, as this almost spark plug, as this engine in the midfield, it really offsets Quinn's play style very well. I think that they have a really nice balance. And when you create that balance, it really does let Jessie Fleming kind of float, and she can now decide where she wants to be the most effective. In the second half, the trade-off, you get Janine Becky for Jessie Fleming. You go back into your normal 3-4-3. I did find it to be a little bit better because they were more assertive. I think almost this lineup of a 3-5-2, it's almost ingrained in their head that, okay, we have to be conservative because we're lined up in this defensive formation. No, this gives you the freedom to kind of push your push the envelope and push your limits a little bit. So I wasn't too thrilled. And again, that comes down to tactics, more so than individual performances.
Let's talk about tactics first. Elias, if you don't mind, G Sharp just sent a message saying they had Fleming playing more like a forward. She seemed lost. We saw Jessie Fleming, and I'll ask Andy. I'll come back to you, Elias, a bit later. We saw Fleming play that number 10 role. That was her role a few years back, but since Beth Priestland took over, she was mostly playing in a double pivot a bit further, and that's when she grew a lot, when she played in that a bit behind, a bit like a Pirlo. That's when she really bloomed in a way where she affirmed herself as being a leader of that team. Right now, we saw Spence putting her as a number 10, And G Sharp is saying she seemed lost. And you know what? I agree with him. She seemed completely lost in that position. Do you think there was a problem tactically for her to get better in that formation?
I think that change affected all three of them because honestly, the first half, all three of them looked very confused. They seemed disjointed. They just didn't seem to be able to complete one pass that they wanted to do or build anything. And I saw the past games where Fleming was playing a little bit lower, and I think she was doing a fantastic job. There, she was distributing the ball very well. She was dictating the tempo of the game, but there she just again looked like it was just not going. And again, that impact I do believe strongly that impacted Quinn as well as Aujo, their play, because once the second half started, it was a completely different midfield. Like again, all three of them were just stellar in their play, but yeah, I think it just disjointed everything, and I don't know if those are. I'm sorry, I just don't know. I know we'll talk about the coach later and the tactics, but I don't know if that's the kind of game where you want to experiment. Go back to say an experiment. If it was a few years ago, Hady, like you said, why are we say experimenting per se in this level of game, right? So it was clear that it wasn't working. I'm glad they made the adjustment at halftime, which I'm pretty sure the adjustment was due to injury, right? Because she felt like her head crushed under the German player. But yeah, it's I definitely do think that it wasn't pretty when it happened.
I still, yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit overwhelmed by the amount of messages that we're receiving talking about CF Montreal. We'll talk about that a bit later. So if we're not talking about it, it's normal. We'll keep them for the next part of the show. We do have one person really giving his thoughts on Ashley Lawrence, saying that at times she lacks judgment and loses the ball when she has to pass the ball. I think her time with the team is coming to an end. As usual, this is Wellington Sauvé with his very direct takes. I don't agree with you at all, Wellington. Yes, she had a bad game, but I wouldn't go to say she's one of the best right backs in the world. Also, she plays with Chelsea. She played with Paris Saint-Germain before. Yes, it was tough for her in that game, but she was very good in extra time. So no, I don't agree with that. Moving on, I want to hear you more, Elias, on that midfield. You talked a bit about Simi Aujo. We talked a bit about Fleming. We didn't say much about Quinn. I'm going to give my take, and then I want to hear you on that. I didn't like Quinn's game. I think that they can help, with the fluidity of the ball. Whenever you have possession, they're very good. And like whenever they have possession. But whenever it gets rough, whenever you need that midfielder to go to really push a player to get a bit more aggressive. No, defensively. When you need someone to be a bit more aggressive, they're not the kind of player that you want to have. I saw it a couple of times where physically they weren't really able to withstand the pressure or the physicality of the German players. And I feel that this was maybe not the right fit. They were not the right fit in the midfield in that game. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be in the starting 11 going forward. Not at all. I think they weren't the right choice for that specific game. I don't know if I'm too harsh, but I felt that sometimes it was a bit tough on them.
I think it's the fact that maybe they having Jessie Fleming as an outright 10 instead of having her as an 8, kind of like what was the case in France, lumped a bit too much onto Quinn's plate. So I agree with you that it was definitely not the same Quinn we saw against France, where it was the exact same formation, but they had a much better game. It did really feel like they were kind of left on their own a bit, because like Simi Aujo was doing her thing, Jessie Fleming was doing her thing, and Quinn, who's supposed to be whose job is supposed to tie everything together. I mean, Wellington kind of said it best. They looked exhausted because they really were. It almost felt on their own, and that leads in again to why the midfield felt so disjointed. It's because there's no proper 10 out there. Don't play a 10. Don't force a player into a 10 when you don't have one. That's
No,
not
you can play. You can play with 2 8s and a 6.
exactly.
You don't need a
Jessie
10, right?
Fleming is at her best when she's allowed to kind of venture forward on her own when she kind of deems fit. Don't give that as her mandate, because then that's just not the kind of profile you're looking for. So
Yeah.
yeah, at the same time, Andy Spence is an assistant coach, and he probably had the instruction to just survive this Olympics and don't get grouped. That's pretty much the only, or try to not get grouped given the points
Yeah.
deduction. And anything else is gravy. And I understand that, but at the same time, you're a coach and you're a high level coach. You should be making these calls.
Yeah.
And I really feel like all three midfield, again, I still think Simi Wujo of the three probably had the best game. But I do feel like Jessie Fleming and Quinn were put in a position, not necessarily put in a position to fail, but definitely were not put in a position to let themselves shine against a team where, let's face it, they were. It was a much better matchup than the France game, and yet somehow the midfield performed worse with somewhat similar instructions because of the fact that those small instructions kind of derailed everything.
Interesting. Moving on with the forwards, Nichelle Prince, Jordan Heidema. I can't understand this choice. I still can't, and I've been racking my head and trying to find reasons why we've seen them in the starting 11, and I still don't understand. I feel, and also, the roles that they were put in. So first of all, Nichelle Prince, playing the normal role that you usually do, play it centrally, try to get those balls, those through balls in behind the defense. Okay, that's okay. I can understand that. But Jordan Heidema getting the ball on the left or on the right in those positions, in the corners, I still don't get it. For me, Jordan Heidema is a poacher. She's that number 9 that should be that target man. No, not a poacher, but a target woman that should be in the middle, in the box, handling the ball and trying to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't think if you wanted to use that, you wanted to use, through balls in behind the defense. Yes, maybe Nichelle Prince would have been a good is a good choice, but Jordan Heidema is not that player that you want to have. That duo doesn't make sense in the way that they played. And again, another subpar performance from both of them. And I don't know how many subpar performances you need in order to bench someone. Andy, how many chances do you give players?
I mean, it depends also on the stake of the games, right? Because the chances can usually are given in bigger games. I think in this competition, at some point, the coach needs to say, you know what, this is not working. And I think, as you said, Jordan is very much a target woman, right? In the sense that the play needs to go through her. And I tried to find what was the complement with Prince. How were they trying to work together to make something, to make an attack, to be dangerous? And it just didn't seem to click. Similar to the midfield in the first half, it just didn't seem to click between the two of them. So if I'm the coach and we move on in an imaginary world, we would have moved on to the next round. This was their chance to show that they can actually do, because it's an elimination game. You need to show your best, and you can have the best attackers in the world. We see it in other countries. We see it in other countries that are top world ranked. You can have the best attackers in the world, the best wingers, best everything. But if they don't work together, if they don't complement each other well, it just won't work. You just can't score. It'll be constant loss of the ball, or somebody will get caught on the right or on the left. And that's exactly what we saw. It just didn't work because they don't their abilities and their style of play just don't complement one another. If I'm the coach, this would have been the chance, I guess. At this point, moving forward, we don't know who's going to be the coach. We don't know what's going to happen, but this would have been the chance for me to have them two there like that.
Yeah. Elias, I agree that this would have been the chance, but they've had a few chances before. And, players that have come in during the game have made the difference. And those two haven't. So how can you explain this? Do you think that the work that they do is that they tire the defense, the opposing defense, and then those players that come in for them are in a better position just because of their work. This is how you explain their place in the starting 11.
I understand that logic, but I can't agree, because when you look at someone like Nichelle Prince, who has the pace, who has that eye to make runs in behind like she has, that's an ideal kind of super sub
Yeah.
that you want against tired defense, not fresh defenses. You look at Jordan Heidema, who, let's face it, we've been quite critical of Jordan Heidema on this podcast, especially since the World Cup, but at the same time, credit is due. Her best performances have come off the bench.
Yeah.
Because she does have this ability to kind of read spaces really well and be, like you said, be a poacher, be that she's not towering, but she is a physically imposing presence in the penalty area. That's what she does best. But that happens when she's at her best as a substitute. But then, I talked about this during the lineup. When you're playing with two forwards, you need people that can create and or finish chances by themselves.
Yeah.
And when you have Evelyn freaking Vien on your bench, that's someone who, yeah, she's not as quick as Evelyn as Nichelle Prince, but she can still move. Those runs in behind that she makes are still quick, and she's probably the best finisher on the team. Well, not probably, she is the best finisher on the team, right? Adriana Leon, who has been, maybe this tournament she's a little bit hot or cold, but at the end of the day, proper finisher who can dribble people one-on-one, who can make those runs as well, who is a very versatile forward. Why is she not starting? Chloe Lacasse, who's been probably the single most dangerous forward of the tournament. Why is she not starting? Right. So you go down the list of all these different players that would be far better suited to start the game, and none of them were selected. And there was the same squad that had the exact same problems when you look at it going forward as the game against France. Then you can't be surprised, right? You can, do the exact same thing and expect a different result, because that's nonsense. So it's a shame that we have to wait 3 years now for a quote unquote major tournament of the entire world playing against each other in a best on best situation, because I do feel like right now, if they can figure this out, they're a top 5 country. And so this is what's frustrating about that game.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating because quality is there. I completely agree with you, Elias. Let's talk about those subs. We have a few subs that came in, so I'm just gonna talk about them, all together. We're not going to talk about them individually. So first sub was at the 45th minute with Jessie Fleming injury, Janine Becky coming in, which was very surprising, knowing that Jessie Fleming plays, in the middle of the pitch, and Janine Becky plays on a side, usually most of the time on the right wing. Then at the 57th minute, Gabrielle Carl going out for Chloé Lacasse, and Jordan Heidema going out for Evelyn Vien, and Nichelle Prince going out for Adriana Leon. And finally, at the 109th minute, Julia Grosso coming in for Simia Woodrow. What did you think about the performance of those 5, Andy? And do you think that those players should or could have done more if they had their place in the starting 11?
Yes, I would say 4 of the 5 subs. In the sense that I like what Becky brought to the game, to the tournament in general. I think she's been very active on the right side. As far as the positioning of the substitution, not completely clear why that was the 1-for-1 made there, because you're not substituting position unless they shifted, they completely changed the formation and just removed the 10 there. But I really, really like what Adriana Leon brings to a game. I mean, she can change a game. She can completely change a game, and you can see how to me, the competition, she stood out in every game she's played. But she also had I didn't see the stats, but I don't know how many shots she missed that she was right in front of the goal.
Too many.
And honestly, if she just finished those shots, I think I say this over and over again, if they finish the shot, we could have easily won 3-0, 4-0 because she did have chances. And to be very fair, she also created these chances by herself most of the time. She ran on the field. She bodied out other players by herself. Like, she's an incredible talent. I was very surprised how what she can do. But the finishing is incredible. She just can't seem to score a goal. I'm sure she has the ability, and it's a very easy, very easy for all three of us here to say, well, just shoot the ball in the net, right? But it's not. It's a very hard thing to do in general for any player. Lacasse also was very, very physical. I thought she was great on the left side, and yeah, exactly. Chloe Lacasse was excellent on that. She seemed to confuse the defense. She seemed to have everybody on their heels.
Exactly
Evelyn Vienne
exactly
always,
what Sam Savvy said. Chloe Lacasse was excellent. She was really having the German defense worried. Yeah, move on.
Yeah, it just felt like it was like at that point when they both came, when the subs came in, you just saw the German defense just confused. I remember there was a point. I don't remember what minute this was that the German defender with the goalie collided with each other to kick the ball. And it just seemed to be like the theme of the game at that point, where they just couldn't seem to find each other, couldn't seem to know where they were. And Evelyn Vienne, well, I don't understand to this point why she's not starting, because she's an excellent super sub. I think she's excellent, but why aren't we giving her a full 90 minutes or just a chance to set the energy? Because she's the kind of player that sets the tone when she's there. She sets the tone, the energy. She's another kind of leader in this squad. Julia Grosso, I wasn't very impressed with her performance. I'm not sure. I think I didn't, unless I missed something, I didn't understand why we removed the Wujo from unless she was tired.
I think she was tired.
Yeah, because she was putting.
Don't forget, Awujo is another NCAA player, so not used to play those high intensity games. Yeah. But also don't forget that Julia Grosso is the one that really got that shot that was deflected by Adriana Leon, unfortunately off target, and it should have been a goal. So she created something, but I agree with you that she was.
I was seeing 11 minutes, right? Such good things from Quinn and Awujo that I was like, why are we killing that vibe right now? Because I just found that Grosso, I'm sure she's an excellent player and she's played really well, but I just didn't see the need for that. But fatigue, obviously, when a player is tired, you do not want to push it any more than it has to be. But I was not really impressed with her performance. That's one player that I guess for me would be more of a sub than a starter. But the rest, I think they completely flipped the game upside down, but they couldn't score, and it was just that was the ultimate thing that led to them losing the game.
No, I agree. You know what, guys? I've said it quite a few times here on The Ball Is Round that for me, Ashley Lawrence has to play as a right back, a right wing back. Right now, looking at that game and the way that it was played, don't forget that when Janine Becky came in, she took over the right wing, and then Lawrence went on the left. And I feel that I don't like Lawrence on the left, but I feel that if you have a midfield of Awujo, Lawrence, and Fleming, that could be very interesting. Don't forget that she can't play as a midfield, Ashley Lawrence. I don't know. Elias, give me, now that we've seen, those players, and we've seen the game, of course, try to put yourself in the shoes of someone that's preparing the next game. And what would be your starting 11 with today's form, taking in consideration? Okay, let's not go in 3 years or the next World Cup in 2027. Just right now, what is your main starting 11? Which formation? Who would you choose?
I mean, it. First of all, you can't displace anyone from the back line. I feel like at this point they're playing at too high a level. They're too familiar with one another, and there's just also it also speaks to just maybe the right now the availability of alternative choices. I think maybe you could argue there's some competition at left back, but I really like what Gabriel Cal brought. So I think that the back five is kind of immovable. I really do enjoy the way Canada plays in the 3-4-3. I'd go with the two midfielders only. And I really want to see what Jessie Fleming and Simi Awujo can do together, because they both have that ability to drive the ball forward. They both have ability to kind of exploit the space that this formation creates in the middle of the park. For all the good Quinn brings, I feel like if I'm not tailoring this to anybody and I'm just putting the best 11 out there based on current form, Simi Wujo and Jesse Fleming have to go in there because a front three is still the most effective way to kind of utilize this width and this quality that they have. And that front three of Chloe Lacasse, Evelyn Viens, and Adriana Leon is how do you not get excited by that, right? Because at the end of the day, they're all three of them are super talented individually. I can't remember the last time the three of them played together. So I'd love to see what, like Andy said, right? Doesn't mean anything if there's no chemistry there, if there's no connection. So at some point, you have to also look at new alternatives. We've been talking about that. We've been pleading about this since before the World Cup. Your midfield is sorted, your defense is sorted, but they still don't know what kind of team they are going forward. And that also has to do with the fact that they keep on just shuffling the forward lineup. You take your three best forwards, you put them in spots that they're all three naturally comfortable in, and you roll the dice. So I think that's my 11.
And yours, Andy?
Well, similar to this, it's. I mean, if you're just telling me to choose a lineup with not knowing who the opponent is or what the situation is, I would honestly go with the same one. I was so excited when it was when it was Adriana Leona with Becky on the right side. That's a very, very nice combination to see the two of them just very nice profiles that complement each other. And the back three, if they continue developing, they continue building that chemistry, which they seem to have built. And I just think it comes back again. I'm kind of like maybe going outside of what it was, but just the cause of everything that happened in this tournament, it seems to have brought them together, and maybe that also had an important part. But as far as chemistry, I would choose those three. I don't want to see Jordan anymore as a starter. In my opinion, I don't think she did. She's that quality yet. Maybe she's still got a little bit of time to go, but I do like Viens. I don't understand why Viens is not starting. I think she brings a different level of energy to that squad, and yeah, that's who I would want in my starting 11.
Okay, I would go with the same formation, the 3-5-2. I wouldn't go to the 3-4-3 at all. I like the 3-5-2. I think you need that link up, or you need three midfielders nowadays in the women's game, because I feel that you have a way of breaking the opponent's defense by going through the middle a lot more than going through the flanks, because let's face it, usually the strikers in a women's game are not very good heading the ball. So I like really playing down the middle. I like that, and I think we have some very good technical players that can bring something in the middle of the pitch. So yeah, back three, I completely agree. Caitlin Sheridan in goal, that doesn't change. I like Janine Becky as a right wing back, and Ashley Warrens as a left wing back. I know it's not her position, but I would put her there. In the midfield, I would go with Fleming, Awujo, and honestly, I've been having a hard time knowing who I would put as a third midfielder. But it's either going to be Julia Grosso or Quinn, depending on who's better. I would like to have Julia Grosso a bit more. Don't forget that she's at Juventus. She's very young still, and I think she can play that hybrid number 6, number 8 role that's required with the three women midfield. I like that. Same for Ujo, same for Fleming. All three of them can interchange in the middle, and I think that could be very nice. And hear me out. For me, the two forwards would be Evelyn Viens and Chloé Lacasse. Because Evelyn Viens as the poacher, as a target woman, as a really fox in the box, with Chloé Lacasse being as good on the left and on the right, be a very good dribbler, able to cross the ball. I think that would create so many chances for the Canadian women's national team. And of course, Heidema, as a super sub, whenever you need a bit more players in the box, I think she could be a good player. Of course, Adriana Leon can be that inner rotation. She can come and bring whatever she brings because she brings a lot of energy. The only thing that I really don't like from Adriana Leon is that 9 times out of 10 she shoots. So, we know that she's going to shoot the ball. So that's good whenever you're chasing for a goal. But when you're at 0-0 and you need to create some better chances, I don't think that's the kind of play that you want to have. So, yeah, I think that would be my starting 11. I think that let's transition directly to Andy Spence because I want to talk about that coach, that assistant coach that took over. Okay. We don't know. He say that he wasn't aware about the whole drone thingy. Let's not talk about the drone incident, okay? But I feel that this guy made me believe again in the potential of the women's national team. He made me believe that this team is good. Because under Brett Friesman and under Kenneth Muller, which is for me even worse than Brett Friesman, I forgot the potential that this team has. I forgot that this team was able to win those big games because we've been disappointed so many times in the last few years, since 2021 and the win in Tokyo. We've been so disappointed. So I like the energy that he brought, but I feel that we need to turn the page. And even if he was very good, I would go with a different coach that brings a different energy altogether. We turn the page of that coaching staff and we move on to a new one, even if Andy Spence, did a very good job in those Olympics. Andy, what would be your decision if you had to choose another head coach? Would you give that role to Andy Spence or would you change everything back?
Obviously, Andy Spence, because he has such a cool name. But no, the most important thing is
Andy solidarity.
But anyways, what I wanted to say is that I think he really because it takes a very special kind of coach, I think, and we've seen these coaches in the men's side and in general, just in other teams that can bring a squad together. Now, sorry, I'm just going to change it real quick to CF Montreal, where we saw Wilfred Nancy after the whole encounter, how he brought his squad together and they played for him, right? And that's what it felt like in this situation. It was a particular situation where I'm sure a lot of the squad was distraught with what was happening, and he really managed to get them united and get together. Now, like any coach, any young coach, any inexperienced coach, they will make mistakes, tactical mistakes. I think that comes with time and experiences, and I'm sure more than anyone, he's the one that took a lot out of this tournament, just being the head honcho of the team, and I think he should be given a fair shot. Maybe, I don't know if there's some friendlies coming out. There might be, but I'm not there to say that he deserves this chance. I think he did well with what he had. Well, given the situation, I think he handled it well. He seemed to have united that squad. They at least in TV. We're only seeing things on TV, so I don't know if there was how the squad was reacting towards him or how they felt comfortable around him to have him as their leader. But I think he should be giving a fair chance with maybe out of competition, see what comes out of all this. Because I think there's gonna starting today, there's probably gonna be a lot things are gonna ramp up and the actions are gonna start being taken. So I think he needs to be given the benefit of the doubt that he did his best he could with this with given the circumstances. So I'm not ready to name him a head coach, but I think he does deserve a chance.
So you would give him the permanent head coach position?
No, I didn't understand that. I just give him the chance in the sense that
you need
give us more sample, give us more. Yeah, exactly. It's still with an interim tag there, but
for how long? Don't you think it's time to give it a proper chance to a coach to really build something with that team, to give him the confidence, saying, you know what, this is your job now, build something. We have the World Cup coming in 2027. We have the W Gold Cup that we want to win because it's time for us to win on our own turf, in our own region. Don't you think that it's time to build something with the coach? Because another interim head coach right now, we did that with the men's team, and I don't think it brought anything to that squad, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think it honestly depends because there's a lot more factors than him just being the head coach, right? There's a lot more factors to what's going to happen with the federation, how the players are going to react. So as to how long you give him depends again what the involvement is of the of how the federation takes this on in the future. So I would give him the interim maybe for another maybe till the end of the year. I don't know how many games. I'm sure they'll have some friendlies there, but and maybe give him that head coach title until the end of the year and see how it goes for him. That's what I would do. But I think we need a little more sample than what we've seen so far in the competition, just with the Olympics.
Interesting. Elias, do you agree?
Yes and no. I just want to update everyone. Patrick also put it in the chat, but
Red card.
Orlando City's been is down to 10 men for a red
Oh
card.
wow! Oh wow!
Still
Nice.
0-0, and they're dominating most of the game, but down to 10 men now. So yeah, Patrick said it, and Pedro Gallese also has a knee injury, and he might be coming out. So
Wow.
it's going
and
great, guys.
Roberto saying seems a bit severe.
No, it
Roberto,
was
right?
last man back. It was outside the penalty area. It's tough to argue.
Okay.
The other defender that was nearby was still like 20 feet away, so it's still it I don't know about severe, but definitely close.
Let's stay
Still a red
positive.
You gotta believe, man. That being said,
believe.
back to more pressing topics. I feel like Canada are in a very, very similar position to when John Herdman left. You've had your leader, you've had your emotional enabler, you've had your motivator. You need a tactician now, and what this game kind of highlighted, as well as honestly everything between the World Cup and yesterday showed, is that this team is more than good enough and has more than enough strong leadership characters that they are now sufficiently capable to self-motivate. They need a proper tactician that knows how to get the best out of all these players now on the pitch. Because again, like the game against Germany showed you, there's only so much that willpower and motivation can go. Because in that first half, they probably had all the confidence and all the energy and all the motivation in the world. But if you're not lined up the right way, if you're not organized the right way, if you're not set up for success, there's only so much you can overcome. And I think now, kind of like what happened with Jesse Marsh, the second they got in a real proper tactician that said, forget all the everything outside. This is football. This is what we're focusing on. This is purely X's and O's. This is the best way to line up this team. They made the semifinals with Copa America. And I think the best way to unlock this team now is to get a proper, pure X's and O's tactician. Obviously, I don't want a cold, unfeeling robot that's going to have everybody hate the coach. Obviously not. But you need to have someone that now focuses on field stuff, because that's the next step this team has to take forward. And yeah, I mean, again, does Andy Spence deserve the benefit of the doubt? I mean, he performed extremely well given the circumstances, but at the same time, it's also very possible that Canada Soccer may want to just carpet bomb the entire coaching staff and start from scratch. Just from an optics perspective, I wouldn't even be surprised, because at the end of the day, this is still one of, if not the biggest soccer scandal in the country's history. So
it's so hard
anyway, cut it.
Yeah.
So a lot of things can happen. I think he's earned, given that they're 3 years away from the next, again, quote unquote, major international tournament where the entire world is invited, I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt, but I need to see some kind of tactical evidence that it's not just, Bev Priestman continue, like we saw with Mauro Biello, for example.
I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen in the decision of the Canadian Soccer Federation. Of course, Christian Jack said it very well in One Soccer. I don't know if you guys heard what he said, but he said it's time. Yes, of course, the shock was great with the whole drone incident. Of course, and internationally, it's going to be played down. People are going to forget, and they're going to move on to something else. But locally, we can't really move on. We have to get to the bottom of this to know exactly when it started and to make sure that everybody that was involved is not part of the Canadian Soccer Federation anymore. So I completely agree with him. So hopefully we'll see some changes. We'll see the people that were responsible really, go away and replace them with better and more honest people. And of course, at the same time, choose a coaching staff. Either you would go with Andy Coronado's choosing Andy Spence, or Elias saying you need a proper tactician. So feel free to comment, tell us what you would like to, where you would like to go. Honestly, I'm a bit on the fence on this. I always like change, and I feel that it's maybe a good thing to do some changes. But at the same time, I agree with Andy Coronado that Andy Spence needs a bit more time and needs a chance. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what's going to happen with the women's national team. Again, we can say that the girls have done what they could. I think we're all proud of this team. We're not humiliated the same that we were after the World Cup. I liked what I saw from that team. They won the 3 games in the group stage and were able to qualify. Yes, they lost against Germany, but it was on penalties. I think they were the best team. Canada was the best team in the second half and in extra time. They had so many chances. They have to improve their finishing. Completely agree with that. But on the pitch, I think they were the best team. They just had in front of them a great goalkeeper that made the saves with the Burger that had a wonderful game, and she's the woman of the match. As simple as that. Moving on, CF Montreal, guys. They won in Stade Saputo against San Luis 3-2. We're not going to go analyze the game itself. We're just going to, I'm going to ask you just a few questions here and there. But first of all, I'm going to go back in all the comments because we have so many. And most of them are from our good friend, Sam Savvy. So first question that he had.
A little debate.
He says, "Hi, boys. When it will be the time to talk about the Tuesday game, this is my 2 cents. Took 2 moments of brilliance by a player who hasn't yet assimilated Courtois' system and a set-piece handball to win. Still very dodgy tactically and similar to every other game. The opponent was almost asking to be swagged on, yet no one can tell what the boys on the pitch were asked to do. Last point on Mr. Courtois. Since when is this year a transition year? He needs to read the room. Fans don't want no transition. Even Gervais asked for playoffs, Canadian Cup win." So I guess you guys know that Sam Savvy doesn't like Laurent Courtois. It's very clear now. And he hasn't since the beginning. I'm going to give him that. Like, even in the first few games, he talks to me a lot still, and he told me, like, I don't understand what he's trying to do. He just forgets about the whole midfield. And, he's not completely wrong. It's been a difficult year for Laurent Courtois. I wouldn't throw him under the bus as he's doing right now. What do you think about what he said about those 2 moments of brilliance by a player who hasn't yet assimilated Courtois' system and a set-piece handball to win? Elias, is it as simple as that? Would you go as simple as what Sam Savvy said?
No, I don't think it's. I think he has some nuggets of truth in there, but you got to remember, at the end of the day, Bryce Duke created that goal, and I hope Wellington's still in here. Bryce Duke created that first goal, and at the end of the day, it's the link up play that he
Wellington is here, huh? Wellington is here, just FYI.
Well, I saw his comment earlier. I don't know if he's still in here though, but right, his link up play and his ability to kind of exploit the space the way he does led to the first goal. Great finish by Tom Pierce, obviously, and good on him. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an unassimilated player that did all the work, right? It was a great finish by Tom Pierce, but Bryce Duke and Matthias Kokoro and everyone who linked up in that play to begin with also deserve their flowers. The second goal, I don't think it's an unassimilated player thing. I think it's just the fact that they haven't had a consistently good crosser of the ball all season. Someone who can consistently find that back post, who can whip the ball around like that. We were talking about after the game. Besides Alistair Johnston, when was the last time they had someone who can consistently get the ball into those dangerous areas with this precision and this level of pace? I can't think of one. It's been ages since they had someone that good from the wing back position. from
we
the
had
fullback
two
position.
players, from what I remember, two players that were able to do that. First of all, Addison Johnston, and the second one with Daniel Lovitz. Those two.
Exactly, right? Aaron Herrera has the quality. We just didn't get to see it from him
exactly
consistently enough. He had that quality, but now if you have someone like Tom Pierce, at the second they get an inch of space, can play that ball in. When you have people like Joseph Martinez or Sunus Ibrahim or Matias Kokoro, who are kind of sneakily good in the air and can definitely, if catching the defense out, can win headers and score, as we've seen them do, then I think that definitely flows into what Laurent Courtois wants. It's just he hasn't had a fullback that's been able to do that consistently, right? Because you saw the Raheem Edwards has put in some good balls. Juan, not for lack of trying, definitely puts crosses into that spot. The quality remains to be seen, but Tom Pierce now brings an extra thing. He's not as quick as Edwards or Juan.
now the
When
cameo is very it's not
it's still a very small
great,
sample
right?
size, but
It's a
even
bit-
that game against Orlando, the crosses into the box were very, very incisive, right? They were right there for someone to jump onto. So we were talking last week about Montreal needs a fox in the box like Kokoro to get on the end of balls. This is the player to give to that initial ball, right? This is the kind of player where Matias Kokoro goes, "Where have you been all my life?" Because this is a guy that can find a striker from anywhere in the opposing half. In the final third, that final ball will be killer. Now it's just about getting the best out of it. So Laurent Courtois now has to kind of find a way to make that tactically sustainable, because now you have those two, you have that kind of asymmetry. You have Juan, who loves to run at defenses. You have Tom Pierce, who likes to just send balls in. But if, again, this is where I kind of agree with Sam. If it's still tactically disjointed, the whole point is to get to that spot. But if you can't tactically even get to that spot, then it's all for nothing. So this is where I think Laurent Courtois needs to maybe rework his midfield, because way, way too infrequently did they find the fullbacks. So if that's going to be your game breaker, it can't be once every 5-10 minutes that they get in a position to put a ball in like that. It has to be the main point of the main objective of you moving the ball in the midfield. Has to be to create space for Tom Pierce, or has to create or has to be to create room in behind for a one. It can't just be, I'll find you if I find you.
Yeah. I think that was the focus since the beginning of the year. I think that was the only focus of Laurent Courtois' tactical system, is just find the wing backs, and that was one thing that Sam Savvy told me quite a few times. You know, the midfield doesn't have a role to play offensively. It's only wing back to wing back, wing back to wing back, wing back to wing back. And he says that, you know, the midfield is non-existent offensively in the construction of the attacks, are not involved in the final third, are not involved in anything. And that was something that he talked to me about. But are you that Andy? Are you that sold on Tom Pierce right now? You know, yeah, he scored a great goal. He crossed a great ball to Matias Kokoro. Do you agree with Elias saying that, you know, we need to look for this wing back a lot more, to Juan and Tom Pierce a lot more, in order to be more dangerous going forward? Or is there something else that you think that CF Montreal needs to do?
To answer your first question, my sold on Tom Pierce. I think it's way too soon. I mean, I think the little he's given us is promising.
Yeah.
And should it be done more? I'll just take what Laurent Courtois said in his post-game press conference. Elias, I think it was you that asked, or somebody else that asked, like, what adjustments did you make? And he said, I made no adjustments. There were no adjustments made. I did nothing. It was just the only difference that was made was the will of the players. That's the way it seemed to me from the stands, right? It just seemed like, you know, players were more committed to the tackles and all that. And as far as whether the wingback should be more involved in all that, absolutely. I think in this particular formation that Laurent Courtois likes to play, he does. The wingbacks are crucial, and they just need to perform. I think Juan has been the wingback that has profited the most out of this formation, because he has it allows him to have that space to use his speed to run down the field, which I believe is the reason why they signed him. But at the same time, he struggles with a cross. We saw guys over and over again every game that there was his cross. He was struggling with the crosses, just not even crosses, just passes in general to the midfield. He struggled a lot. So if we can get a player that complements him in the sense that can actually cross the ball, so say have a run on one side that brings it upfield, and also have maybe some Tom Pierce on the other side that can cross the ball properly to the strikers, like Elias said, it's such a different game when you have because Hady actually asked the question. I remember that, and it repeated in my head. He asked, "Who's serving the ball to him?" And it's true. There's nobody serving his runs, and that's what Tom Pierce. All Tom Pierce did was connect the ball to the person running inside. So that's what I think was a big difference. And I think it's important that the wingback position in this particular formation is crucial for any kind of success.
Yeah. I agree. I still feel that the midfield is underutilized, in my opinion. I feel that the midfield has to be a bit more involved in offensive situations than what it's been since the beginning of the season with Laurent Courtois. That's the only thing that I would change. But yeah, of course, wingbacks are very important when you're playing with a 3-back with 2 wingbacks. Wingbacks are part of your offensive buildup. That's completely normal. Let's talk about. We talked a lot about Tom Pierce, and I agree with you, Andy. I think it's a bit too early. Also agree with you, Elias, that yes, he does have a good cross on him. Completely agree with that. And I think that Matías Cocaro was very, very happy to get this kind of cross.
He's been asking for it all year. So yeah.
Exactly. But I also feel that defensively he was not that good, even if Laurent Courtois in the post-game said that he liked what he saw defensively from him. And that's something that we've seen on social media of players and former supporters of his former team saying that defensively he's not good, and I've seen that he was a bit shaky at times. But it's a very interesting first game for him. What I want to talk about is mostly David Bugay, because we've been talking about Tom Pierce a lot because he's been decisive, he scored, he gave an assist. But honestly, I loved the game of David Bugay. I loved his game. I think he was very, very interesting. He was able to, we saw him a couple of times dribble down the middle, bringing the ball forward. Defensively, he was very interesting, defending on his counterpart. I liked what I see. I want to see a bit more. I'm not saying that he's going to be better than Juan, but I'm saying that he can bring that different role than Juan can bring. Juan is very offensive. Maybe sometimes if you want a more defensive right, on a more defensive right wing back, I think you would go with David Bugay, and he's able to bring something offensively too, which we saw also. So, Elias, what did you think about David Bugay?
I 100% agree with you. I think it wasn't as noteworthy a game. Obviously, when your counterpart gets a goal and assist, you tend to maybe fade into the background a little bit, but it was generally faultless.
Yeah.
I think he had the scouting report on him was that he is very defensively solid. As a right back, as a right wing back, as that flank defender, he's tall, he's quick, he's strong, he's great one-on-one, and he's versatile. So he could defend a bunch of different forwards in a bunch of different positions. And when you have the potential to have someone like George Campbell on your side, I think having someone so defensively apt and responsible is definitely not a bad thing. Now, like his performance, especially with the ball, I would say is closer to Sam's analysis of uninitiated or unassimilated, where he was very much kind of going with the flow of the game rather than maybe sticking to what Laurent Courtois asked of him tactically. He was going on his dribbles. He was kind of picking out spaces that we don't normally see from Juan or from last year's whichever wingback. Orlando just scored, by the way.
Orlando scored.
Orlando just scored. So
yes, sir.
Who scored? Cartagena.
Podcast.
I'm pretty sure.
And Enrique. It was actually a really nice move. Anyway,
He's
Nice.
multitasking, right? But so I agree that in possession he was definitely a bit more rough around the edges tactically, but I loved the kind of initiative that he brought. He took people on with the dribble. He created his own space, and he kind of maybe forced players out to cover out wide when, usually the blueprint against Montreal, especially with people with wing backs who can't really cross the ball that well, is if you close up the middle, let them cross the ball every time, and we'll defend the cross. I'm fine with that. But now you have people like David Buga, you have people like Tom Pierce who bring something different than just what Raheem Edwards and Juan bring. It adds that element of unpredictability and adds that element of, okay, now we actually have to defend out wide, which will in turn create spaces in the middle. One thing that I immediately started thinking about was under Wilfried Nancy, Sam Piet. Because Samuel Piet had, in that midfield three of him, Wanyama, and Kone, he had this ball across from the right side of midfield to the second post that he would find Romel Kyoto on borderline telepathically. They just knew each other in that run. And it got so effective to the point where teams were actively stepping to Samuel Piet of all people to stop him from playing a ball in. But what that does is it completely throws off the balance of the other team's defensive block, because the second you have to kind of make accommodations for stuff you weren't expecting, everything kind of snowballs. And someone having to step to Samuel Piet of all people opens stuff up for Ismail Kone, opens stuff for Georgi Mihailovic, who dropped into the midfield spots. So if Tom Pierce can become a reliable threat, again, we're still operating, Eve would hate this episode, but we're still operating on a lot of ifs and hypotheticals and all this stuff. But if Tom Pierce can become a reliable crossing threat, that is now something that has to be very seriously addressed, which will then in turn force teams out of the defensive block of just covering the middle 20 yards of the field and now have to come out wide. And that will in turn make room for Mathieu Chouinard, make room for Bryce Duke or Joseph Martinez, or whoever decides to maybe play in a little bit more of the half spaces. This is all entirely hypothetical, right? We still need to see some proof of concept, but what this does now, having that delivery, just increases the amount of variation they could throw at you. Now it's on Laurent Courtois to kind of exploit that versatility.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun for Laurent Courtois to try to do that and to exploit the everything that you mentioned. That's completely
it's a good problem to have for Laurent Courtois.
It is, and I think
there's no such thing as a good right now. There's no such thing as a good problem. Let's be honest.
we have before
Let's
I
have
ask
more
you,
solutions than problems.
before I ask you the last question that I had for you on CF Montreal, we had a few comments from Wellington. I don't know why it's not showing on StreamYard, so I went and I got them from Facebook directly. He has a couple of questions. First of all, he's answering, of course, Elias, saying Bryce Duke plays well, 1 game out of 7. No consistency with this guy. You cannot rely on him to go to war with him. You know this, Elias. You can count on the finger of your hand how many games Bryce has performed well since his arrival in Montreal. So, not a fan of Bryce Duke.
I don't disagree.
We know
with
that already. We don't disagree.
Leave Bryce Duke alone.
We don't disagree with you, Wellington. Yes, he is very inconsistent, but he still has some abilities that if you're able to show him and to teach him how to get consistent performance, and that's something that a coach needs to be able to do, then he could be a very good player for us. Right now, he's not. Completely agree with you. I think we all are in agreement on this, that he has some qualities, but he's very inconsistent. I think that's what we've always said.
For me, Bryce Duke, and this is where it's kind of infuriating, is because Bryce Duke, it always seems like he has, in order for him to have a good game, the game has to work for him to have a good game. Everything has to align for him to have a good game. And as a player, you can't have that. You can't have the game aligned for you. You have to align the game. You have, especially in his position, he's the difference maker. He has to make a difference. He's the one that has to set the tempo, right? Set the tempo of the game. And instead he lets the game build his tempo and build and hopefully, cross our fingers that this Bryce Duke game works, in this game. So that's just, I don't know if it comes with maturity with him. I don't know if it comes with proper coaching, or maybe different elements around him that need to work perfectly.
It's a bit of everything, I think.
Yeah.
It's a bit of everything. Moving on, other question from Wellington, and it's for me. Hady, this question is for you. The other day you said Waterman is a great player by MLS standards. As far as I know, every great player in MLS dreams to play in Europe. If Waterman was that great, he should be on his way to Europe. He's a great player, but not in the starting 11 of Canada, the national team. Alistair Johnston, Ishmael Kone, he said Jogo Almanda. I don't know who's Jogo Almanda. We're great in MLS. I think Thiago Almada. I think that's what he meant. We all know where they are today. Don't get me wrong. Waterman is a good player, but not great. He still has to step up his game. Don't overrate him as you did all season long with Bryce Duke. Wellington, throwing, go ahead. Thanks, man. I love you too. But to answer your question, Waterman is a great player, and I'll say it and say it and say it again. He's not going to go to Europe because he's not young anymore, and European teams will go and grab players from North America, from MLS, that have potential. There are 21, 22, 23, 24, maybe sometimes 25, but they will not go and get players that are 28. So he's not going to go to Europe. It's something completely different. If he goes to Europe, it's going to be in the second or third division. It's not very interesting. He plays in first division here. I think he's great by MLS standards. I think he can grow a lot more. He needs consistent minutes in a position. I like him better now. I agree with Elias. I like him better as a right center back than in the middle because of Fernando Alvarez, performances in the middle. I think I would prefer to see Joel Waterman now as a right center back. So that's the only thing that I would say on Joel Waterman. I have one other question for you, and that's for you, Andy, before we answer the questions of all our spectators. Andy, finally, we've seen Laurent Courtois make those changes in that game that we were asking for a while now. So first of all, having Mathieu Choinière and Nathan Saliba in the midfield together, looking at their age, the future of that team. Yes, of course, we've been saying that before Mathieu Choinière asked for a trade, but on paper, we wanted to see that duo in the midfield. And the second thing, we've seen Joseph Martinez and Matias Kokaro as starters too, which is something that we've been asking for a while now. So your 2 cents on those two tandems, would you repeat the experience? Do you think that's a good idea to see that again? Or what do you think about all this?
For me, as far as the midfield, I do believe that it depends on the version of Mathieu Chanel that we're getting, because the version that we got of him on Tuesday night was spectacular. I honestly, guys, I asked it on social media and I kept asking in my head, did Mathieu Choinière sign a new contract and it hasn't been announced? Because he played his butt off. He was all over the field, and again, that makes someone like Nathan Saliba that doesn't run all over the place, doesn't take up too much space of the field, but he's also a solid midfielder, allows him to do his thing. But the way Mathieu Choinière played, I would love if we can get him for like that for the rest of the season. 1,000% I want him there, and I want him to and if it works well with Nathan Saliba, the young core of this group, absolutely 100% I would want to see the two of them, because they're two very different profiles that can possibly talk the same language and communicate well and grow together. Hopefully, we're coming to the tail end of the season, so absolutely, it's something that hopefully, I think I remember, I'm taking it back now, but if we look at the clips that Atlanta United provided to us in the preseason when Laurent Courtois was just setting his lineup, I do believe they had Nathan Saliba with Mathieu Choinière at that point in the preseason. So it was definitely probably something that they envisioned to have throughout the season. But one thing led to another, that they didn't play well together through injury or contract disputes. But when it works, it works. That I really like that combination. As far as Joseph Martinez and Matias Kokaro, it's tricky, man. I don't know if I like that combination, because they're very two very different profiles that don't necessarily. I don't know if they work together because Matias Kokaro has had a very well. He missed a penalty and he also made a goal. Had a goal, but Joseph Martinez with him, I just find they're two different forwards, and I'm not completely sure they complement each other's style just yet. I don't know if Matias Kokaro is given the instruction to kind of do his own thing and feel the how that striker position is going, as opposed to Joseph Martinez that likes. You can tell that he uses his body and his position to kind of try to set up a play so that it's either him that scores or somebody else that scores. But Matias Kokaro seems to be the one that wants to score. And I don't know if it needs more time for the two of them to play together so it works, but I don't see it so far working. That's I don't know if that answers the question, Hady, but
yeah, it does.
It's not something that
we're
I'm
not going to agree on this,
today.
but
Yeah.
we're not going to agree on this, but yeah, it does answer the question. Elias, a couple of things for you, two questions for you. So first of all, we talked, Andy answered about Mathieu Choinière and Nathan Saliba being in midfield. That was one of the questions that I asked Laurent Courtois. Having a three-man midfield with three very mobile players like Bryce Duke, Mathieu Choinière, and Nathan Saliba, is this the way to go going forward until the end of the season for CF Montreal? That's the first question for you. The second question, I wanna hear you on Matias Kokaro and Joseph Martinez together up front.
Yeah, I especially if they're expecting to have the majority of the ball, I can't see why that midfield three shouldn't work, especially at home, especially when they're winning the ball back. They've got opposition teams pinned back. I think this is the way to go. They still have problems breaking down low blocks. I think San Luis did play a very open game, and I talked about it, right? For an open game, it takes two teams, and San Luis came with a very progressive and a very attack-minded approach. And when Montreal, credit to them, are very good when the game is open, right? Regardless of who's their coach, even under Hernando Sada last year, when the game is wide open, they can show up to play. My question now is, with these different additions and with these different players that are in form, these very, very frustrating low blocks that we've been seeing teams set up against Montreal with a lot of success, how better are you getting at breaking it down? And that's still a question that hasn't been answered because we haven't consistently seen teams break it down. That being said, Nathan Saliba, Bryce Duke, and Mathieu Choinière is probably your best chance in the midfield at breaking it down. So, regardless of tactics and stuff like that, if you're going to look at, if I'm looking at a board with the entire depth chart, I'm saying, who do I want to break down low blocks? Who do I want to exploit those spaces? You can't really look anywhere else than that. My bigger problem with the attack, when you look at Martinez and Kokaro, is not necessarily that they won't click, is that they both want different things, right? And not that, when two forwards like certain things being done differently, that's not a problem. It's when they thrive in not completely different systems, but significantly different systems. In that, Joseph Martinez loves to kind of drop off, receive the ball in space, and then either play another ball, use his really good first touch, let a shot go, something like that. We talked about Matias Kokoro. He's a fox in the box. Those are two very different approaches, but not just as attackers. Those are two very different approaches to a collective football movement, right? Everybody has to be in on one thing or the other. And this team is not good enough yet to do both. I do think they have the personnel and the talent to be good at both. Not great, not yet, but I do think they have the talent to be at the very least competent at both. The thing is, we haven't seen the two of them play together enough. Right? They started together against San Luis. You were like, exactly. Oh my God, I forgot that they're on the same team. Like it felt almost alien to see them on the same field together. So they have the personnel for it. They have a coach who's willing to do it, and they have the strikers and the target men. They're capable of finishing it and executing it. So all the ingredients are there. but I'm still concerned that there's this lack of willingness to commit to it, from be it from the players, be it from the coaching staff, be it from whoever. I still feel like there's this intangible missing, and it's almost this spirit of togetherness that we even saw last year, that this year doesn't really seem to be the case, because even with, you know, how close they looked at the beginning of the year and how united and how, you know, again, we're talking about self-motivation. We talk about how ready to go they were for each other. Now that you don't get that same energy. So I don't know if they need maybe like another camp in Arizona for a couple weeks just themselves. If they get knocked out of League's Cup, maybe just go to a chalet together or something and just hang out.
Samuel
But
Pietz.
Yeah,
exactly.
to Samuel Pietz chalet. Yeah.
But
I feel they need
that's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get to get to know
I
each
would
other.
add one thing, but do you guys remember at the beginning of the year when we were winning those games that the team would actually publish a picture of the team like in the locker room, like flexing and all that, like after a victory?
Yeah.
What happened to that?
I don't
Anyways,
know.
that's how united we were at the time, and now I guess there's little to nothing. Anyways, just a little remark that I was like, what happened to the victory picture?
Yeah, because they so many things happened since then.
Exactly.
That, yeah. Now,
Feels like a million years ago.
I'll give the answer of Laurent Courtois when I asked him the question about Matias Kokero and Joseph Martinez, and his answer was, I think they're very complementary. They are able to play together very, very well. The problem is, I don't like what I've seen from them defensively. So, yeah, it's
They
a
don't
bit
defend
weird.
well together.
They don't defend well together, exactly, as per Laurent Courtois. Honestly, that's why I would put, a three-man midfield, and then, let them worry with the attack more than anything. But let's wait and see. We have an update then from the game of Leagues Cup. So we have J Falcon that sent us a message. 1-0 in Orlando for Orlando against San Luis, but also Cruz Azul winning 1-0.
Yep.
Knowing that Mexico, the Mexican teams cannot host games, that means that next Friday, if the score stays the same, it could be Montreal against Cruz Azul in
theory.
Stade Saputo, in theory. So
there's still 45 minutes.
As of right now, that's what I said. As of right now, so that could be very interesting. Maybe another game for CF Montreal at home at Stade Saputo against a Mexican team. I think I would like that. Moving on. Guys, CF Montreal, what should we expect going forward? We have 9 games left until the end of the year. What should we do in MLS? Like, what would be the tactic? What changes should we do? Do we need to choose a starting 11? What do we need to do in order to make sure to have the best chances to qualify for playoffs? Elias.
I'm still not completely closed off to the chalet idea, but I think on a more serious note, honestly, it's kind of rediscovering that spirit of unity that we saw so much at the beginning of the season. And yes, that comes with maybe getting some wins under your belt, some consecutive wins, but it also comes with playing as a team. It also comes with, everybody has to buy into this collectively. And I think the second that they get some wins under their belt, if they get some wins under their belt, and they start to realize that not only are playoffs attainable, but they're a very real possibility, and they start maybe remembering how well they played against bigger teams, especially at home, they can rediscover that. But that feels a lot more like wishful thinking. If you're looking in terms of what quantitative things, what concrete things they can do, I really think they need the leaders to lock everybody in a room, just a players-only meeting, and get everybody on the same page. Yeah. Because even if everyone gets the tactics, even if everyone, they get this kind of variety and unpredictability going forward, and they patch up the defensive effort, it still feels like the group spirit is disjointed and it doesn't feel like everyone's on the same page still. And I think now this is probably the biggest test of the season for the leadership core. I'm talking about Mathieu Choinière, Samuel Piet, Joel Waterman, even Nathan Sleep, all the guys that have worn the armband, right? The veteran guys, people like Joseph Martinez, people like Victor Wanyama, they now have to kind of grab this team by the scruff of the neck and say, we're going to get along, we're going to get on the same page. And that starts from the top. That starts with your team leaders. And that confidence and that kind of desire to work together is contagious. But it's done together, and it has to be done as soon as possible. Because, we were talking early in the season, it's like, points don't really start counting until the final 10, 15 games. Well, we're in it now. So, like, we're in the shit now. You have to kind of put up or shut up, because or else, you can keep on saying, oh, we still have time until decision day. And then all of a sudden,
No, we don't have time.
The time is now. So I think that's the onus is really on the leadership group from the players to get everybody on board now. This is why you get the armband. This is why you're looked at by the coaches. This is why you have these responsibilities. So you have to do them now.
That's very interesting. Let's talk about the fans, because I look at the people that are watching the show right now, and confidence is not very, very high, Andy. So if you look at Patrick, he said they need to win all remaining home games and go 500 on the road is what they need to do, but they won't. And Roberto is saying you are correct, Patrick. So how important is it to get your fans behind you and believe in you, Andy? Is that something that CF Montreal, is that something that CF Montreal needs to improve on going forward? Not this year, but the following year and the following year. Get the fans behind you.
I think any team wants to have their fans, should have their fans behind them, believing in what they do. But it's just trying to be like I guess a negative Nancy right now, in the sense that I think as a fan, us three here and all the other fans of CF Montreal, if you ask any of them, what do we do the last 9 games? Well, put in the best 11 in your lineup and give it your all. But how many times has that happened? I'll go back to the example of the Toronto game, where we as fans were drooling, wanted a battle, wanted a fight, and the team showed up flat. Actually, the team never even showed up, but whatever. Yeah. It was a game. So just to show, like, as a fan, we have our point of view of like, let's go. But Laurent Courtois did say in the press conference that this is a transitional year. I don't know what message that sends to the fans or to the players. I'm not sure if they're gonna. That means that, okay, well, guys, just expect us for the rest of the season to kind of experiment. If we make it to the playoffs, great. If we don't, good. That's okay too, because this was just a transitional year, right? So again, I don't know what the players are saying to one another in the locker room, if they understood that message a different way than maybe the fans took it. I don't know how they are looking. Maybe some of these players are taking these 9 games as their opportunity to say, look for that next new contract or next team, wherever is it. Maybe they don't want to be in Montreal anymore, which could be a very good possibility. But as a fan, I will tell you that what we need to expect for the next 9 games is hoping that this team continues to give it their all, like they did in St. Louis, and see that best version of Matthias Kokaro, and see that best version of Tom Pierce, and see the best version of midfield like we've been expecting all year. Is it going to show up next game, be it on August 24th, or based on right now's result? Is it going to be here again? I hope so. I really want to see them continuing to present their best 11 that works to win. But to me, what stays in my mind is Laurent Courtois saying it's a transitional year. It carries a heavy meaning, that, and I think the team either needs to make the club needs to make it a point to hey guys, we want to win it all. I know Gervais mentioned at the beginning of the year that they wanted to win the Canadian Cup, and they wanted also to be competitive in the league. But words are words and actions are actions, and the actions right now have not gone in that direction that he said we were going. So it's going to be an interesting next few months to see what's going to happen, what this team is actually, mission is at the end of the day. But yeah, I would say to expect maybe more experimenting. I don't know if what to some of us might seem like the best 11 is necessarily what the coach or the club sees as the best 11
Yeah.
for the next few months.
But I also feel that, the fact that Uncle Tois said that it's going to be a transitional year was that saying, you know what, guys, I'm going to try stuff. And what's important is mostly next year. There was a big change with Olivier Renard leaving, Gabriel Gervais coming in. So I feel that they want to change things up. We saw Mason Toy going to Portland. We saw a new right wing back, a new left wing back. There's a feeling of renewal somewhere, and that makes it a transitional year. And I don't agree with Wellington saying, let's keep it real. The performance and consistency of this team is an issue. Even if they make it to playoff, it would be to play only one game to be eliminated. Dude, we're not going to win the league. We know that. We're not going to win the MLS Cup, but getting to the playoffs has its own value. Getting to the playoffs means that you made it to the offseason. That's a big achievement. Let's not downplay it. If we do make it, that's pretty good. That means that you can build off of something to get better next year, hopefully with the right decision. So let's wait and see. We did have a few questions before the pod that was sent to us, just a couple of them. The first one is from Dr. Foot asking 2 questions. Is CF Montreal transfer window over? Do you share Olivier Renard's opinion? He gave an interview in Belgium that the CF is not going in the right direction with the new philosophy brought by Gervais. And the third one, did Canadian women's national team forgot to practice penalties? Who wants to go first and answer all 3 questions of Dr. Foot?
Sure. I'll go first. But Hady, if you don't mind, can you bring up the question again? I just want to.
Of course.
All right. So, is it over for the CF Montreal transfer window? Do we?
It's until the 8th, by the way. So it's until.
Yeah, but I don't remember. I haven't seen it up to date. But do we have any spots open yet and left, or no? We don't have any in the roster.
That's a good question. I'll check.
Grayson Duty and Ousmane Jabang are gone.
Yeah,
and they come
right.
as a spot.
That was for Pierce and Bougai. But the thing is, now with Mason Toy gone, technically there's 1 spot left.
Yeah. I mean, where are we gonna find? Where else do we bring somebody now besides the left back, right back that we needed, right? Like at this point, most of the positions are pretty loaded, unless you bring like a DP midfield. But at that point, you're breaking Mathieu Choignard and Nathan Saliba or Piet's position. So to me, in my opinion, the way I see the squad today, doesn't really seem like there would be a rush unless you're bringing a prospect that maybe needs a few just to get acclimated to the club. The second question was, do I agree with Olivier Renard's direct? It's so early to see what the philosophy is yet. I mean, it's easy, I think, for anyone to say, well, things are going to change now. When Olivier Renard first came here to CF Montreal, he had he said what his mandate was and some people agreed with it. Some people said, why are we doing this? We're taking steps back. To sign the youth to sell them out later. Why are we doing that? It's like we're purposely losing. Now that Olivier Renard has left, people are saying, is a new approach a good idea? Is it a bad idea? It's too early to tell. So I don't think it's good or bad. We're just gonna see how it pans out. And the third question about did they forget to practice a penalty? I mean, in retrospect, I guess yeah. I guess maybe they did forget, but I mean these things. If anybody that's played soccer, you go 1-on-1, even if a goalie is in front of you and the goal's right in front of you, you can just miss it badly. It's just, even if you practice all day, it's hard. A penalty is very, very hard. So that's why I said at the beginning of the podcast, I absolutely hate penalties in soccer. I don't understand the purpose of them because soccer is a team sport and penalty is not a team sport, in my opinion. So I don't understand, and not much skill besides kicking a ball and a goal. So anyways, I can go on a whole podcast hating on penalties, but it's yeah, I guess I'll let you answer the question.
Anything to add, Elias, on what the end said?
I tend to agree for the most part on the first one. I think Montreal is pretty much done their mercato. I don't see them doing anything big. when it comes to Olivier Renard's comments, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if he thought the club was going forward, he wouldn't have left, right? So obviously he thought that they were going in the wrong direction. And the thing is, I don't think there's a bad philosophy. I just think there's a lack of commitment to it. So, but that's not. I'm not saying that they're not committed to their philosophy. I'm saying just in general, I don't think there exists. No, that's not true. But like for the most part, right? Whether it's we want to sign big players, we want to develop young players, we want to do something in the middle, we want to do this, that. Those are not bad philosophies. It's your commitment to them that is good or bad. So if you're going, we're gonna do this, and then you half-ass it, or you kind of go like, this is enough, then it's the wrong attitude, because then you're not committed to going forward. And that if that's what Olivier Renard means, then I agree with him, because I do feel like I need to feel more of a commitment to the project from the entire organization and not just the coach and the players. Penalties. We didn't really talk about the penalties. We talked about Kalen Sheridan. We talked about Berger. But the thing is, I don't agree with you, Andy. Penalties are a frustratingly simple concept, right? It's the pressure around that makes it difficult. But penalties themselves are ridiculously simple, and that's what frustrated me so. That's what frustrated me so much about the last 4 penalty shootouts Canada's been in. Is some of these penalties, with all due respect, are stinkers. Some of the penalties.
Yeah.
You are professional football players. You are professional soccer players. There is no excuse. And it's not like you're a center back who never takes a shot.
And
It's
you
all
look at the
forwards and
penalties.
midfielders.
And you look at the penalties from the German team.
Exactly. They were
phenomenal, awesome,
right?
awesome.
And that's what I mean by penalties themselves are not hard. If you let the pressure get to you, I understand that. But there's no excuse for having bad technique. If you miss, it happens, right? But there's no excuse for having poor penalty technique. There's no excuse for not hitting it properly. There's no excuse for all this stuff. Because if it happened once, c'est la vie. But they always, of the last 4 penalty shootouts that they've been in, have all been unconvincing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm surely I'm crazy, because penalties are a very simple thing, right? You keep your shoulders, like the technique behind them. So I think that either they don't train it at all, or you start reshuffling your order, because there's no reason that they should be this bad at pens. There's no reason.
I just hate penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the world,
I hate shootouts too, because they're stressful, not because
even in the World Cup of France versus Argentina.
But at one point, you need to stop the game.
What are we doing?
You need to stop the game.
Yeah,
at one
I know.
point.
It's not like hockey that you can go into.
Like Wimbledon, make it never end.
Exactly.
Let them play for 5 hours.
One more question from Tate that was here on the show. I don't know if he's still here, but hopefully he is. If CF Montreal moves on in the Leagues Cup, who are your top 3 starting up front for the next game? I'm gonna say mine because everybody knows them already. Opoku, Matias Colcaro, Joseph Martinez. That's for me are the top 3. Very, very simple for me. Guys, your opinion, Andy.
Sunusi Ibrahim has to be there, and Matias Colcaro and Joseph Martinez. Those are my 3.
Oof, but who's gonna play them? Give them balls. Who's gonna play
Ibrahim,
them?
1,000%. He's so good at spreading the ball. He really is. He collects the ball really well with his chest or with his feet, and then spreads the ball either to the sides or forward. I think he's a fantastic player. I don't understand why he keeps getting benched. It's an opinion. I've observed him. I think he plays really well and really young. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't understand. But anyways,
interesting. Elias?
It's too many 9s for my taste. It's just too many strikers. At some point, you need something. I think Mahala, Colcaro, Martinez.
Like me.
Yes. Okay. I agree with Hady.
Good.
It's
I think Mahala's been struggling.
Look, at the end of the day, you have to put your best foot forward, and Mahala brings something that no one else on the team can bring. And until Jean-Anthony Vincent comes back, I think there's very little debate for me as to who the best front 3 is, because again, my favorite Sunusi is Sunusi off the bench. So let him come off the bench.
I think he's a very good a rotation player. He should get starts here and there. But for me, Colcaro, Martinez are in front of him. And for me, you need a player that can create a bit more than Sunusi. So for me, it's Mahala Opoku. As simple as that.
I find
I hope.
that Mahalo. Sorry, I find that Mahalo Poku has been struggling in the setting up the plays.
He hasn't been playing, man.
Yeah,
He's been on the bench. He got one bad game, and he's been benched since. Like,
okay,
I don't
fair.
know.
Yeah,
I don't
fair.
know. I feel that sometimes, some players got quite a few chances, and others had half chance, and then were benched right after. I still don't understand. I don't understand how he prepares his teams, but it is what it is. Moving on. What's the update? The last update on the games, guys. So Elias.
Still 1-0. We're at the 64th minute now for Orlando and San Luis.
And Cruz Azul still winning.
Cruz Azul is still winning, yes. So, again, as it stands with half an hour left, Montreal will be hosting a Leagues Cup game, a knockout Leagues Cup game.
We're not getting booted tonight.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay, guys. So thanks everyone for watching the show. It was really, really interesting. A long show. I think we had a lot to say on the Canadian women's national team. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round, episode 190 of The Ball is Round. We're slowly approaching to episode 200. I never thought this would happen. So thanks a lot, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Elias. It's always nice to chat soccer with you. And everybody that's been here and interacting with us, thanks a lot. Guys, as I always say, this content is always going to be free. This podcast is always going to be free. But you want to help us, grow the product and get better at what we do, make things, create stuff. Feel free to come and join our Patreon page and help us grow the product. That's it for today. Thanks a lot, and see you next week for episode 190 of The Ball is Round.